I'm Sonia St. Clair. I'm from Queensland, Australia, on the beautiful Gold Coast. And I'm a retired clinical hypnotherapist, although I've done a few things in my life. But what I want to talk about is my NDE when I was 14 years old. I was walking from the orphanage where I was living with my twin sister. I had had acute appendicitis for 3 days, and anyway, we ended up walking to the hospital, and halfway to the hospital my appendix burst, and that's when I went to the light. I didn't go through a tunnel. It was just all pure white, nothing like the white on earth. It was just absolutely stunning. And in that light, I was enveloped by love, so much love, which I recognised when I was with God, because the first 14 years of my life, when my appendix burst, I had not ever been loved or knew about love or really knew that it existed. So when I was with God and in his world, the love was absolutely overwhelming. And when I went up to the light, I did not have any memory of my life on earth, absolutely none. All I knew was I was home and I had never left. That's how it felt. And God spoke to me telepathically. And even though our conversation was telepathically, he sort of knew the conversation in advance, really, without even, doing it telepathically. You just sort of knew. You had this great awareness of what was going to be said and what everything was. And what I learned was how much he loves us. He loves us so, so very much. And one person that I came across once recently said to me, "You don't know how much today I needed to hear that." And I felt that he was on the brink of taking his own life. Because some of us, we're not loved, never been loved, and really don't know what that feels like. But when I went up to the light and had my NDE, love is so beautiful when you know what it means. And there is nothing on this earth that suggests to me what love really means, because we don't have the capacity to love one another the way God does. But what I can say is this: love wins everything. Love will always win out. And if every one of us loved one another, be kind to one another, and help one another, and be grateful for everything that we have, you would not need any wars, you would not need prisons, hospitals, military, you wouldn't need anything. And it's all the traumas of today's world and technology, which is a great thing, but it also has its downfalls. And today the world seems to be me, and there's a lack of love existing in the world today, which I really notice having had my NDE at 14. And now that I'm older, I'm 72 now, and I really reflect on it every day. A lot of times of the day, I really reflect on it more and more to bring myself into that space of how love really feels, because I'm not feeling it on this earth at all, and that is such a shame. But if I can let people know, even when your life sucks, and I know what that's like. The first 14 years of my life, I had been in 5 different orphanages from the age of 3 months old. And there was a lot of abuse. I won't go into detail, but there was a lot of abuse, physical, emotional neglect, medical neglect, hence why my appendix burst. No one wanted to take me to the hospital or call a doctor. And I had been beaten till I was unconscious when I was 8. So I get it. I know rejection big time. I know the pain and the suffering of what a lot of people are going through. And all I can say is how I got through that and am still alive today, because a lot of us aren't. My twin sister didn't survive. She died 11 years ago. And a lot of people that were raised in orphanages do suicide because they just don't see any way out. And for me, my way out was forgiveness. And I forgave everyone, including my mother, whom I knew over the time. I saw her a few times during my childhood. I absolutely forgave everyone and released them with love. And that doesn't mean you have to have them in your life. You don't have to have them over for dinner, but just let them go and release the animosity and the hatred and the anger. Because when we forgive, we draw on our strength. Because when we don't forgive, it's so tiring. It's so much fatigue and worry and anxiety and reliving it over and over and over. And that just keeps us in our weaknesses. And that's what the past does when we live in the past. And for me, forgiveness is the biggest thing you can do. And I know it's going to be hard for a lot of you, and some of you won't want to go there. You will not want to forgive, and I understand it. You know, if you don't want to forgive, you have the permission not to forgive. But if you can, even with just starting at one person, when you forgive, you release everything from yourself. It helps you to have a happier, better life. And how I do that is because I draw on the love that I felt in my NDE. His love, the capacity that God has to love us, is beyond mankind's realm of thinking. It really is. The greatest love on earth is nothing compared to what's on the other side. I never experienced anything negative. All I knew was love. All I knew was God. And all I learned from him was be kind to one another. Again, love one another, be helpful. And that doesn't mean we have to be perfect. I'm not perfect by any means. I have my days, believe me, but I try. And all I remember is the love that I felt when I was 14. And I came back when I woke up in hospital after surgery. I was so disappointed that I was back on this earth because I knew what was ahead of me. I knew what was set before me, and that was a very difficult life. It was something I knew from the age of 7 that my life would be difficult. And it was very difficult because having been raised with a lot of violence and abuse, I ended up marrying a man that was that way. And so that was all I knew, and it was familiar. So that's the life I had for a long time. And it wasn't until I was 40 years old that I thought to myself, you know what? You are worth more. You are worth more than this. I don't know what it was, how I was going to get it. All I knew was I wanted the happiness, success, and to be free from this kind of pain and suffering that I too allowed to happen. And if I can help anyone today that's suffering with anger, being abused in any way, shape or form, I want you to know you are worth more. God did not create you for nothing. He does not make mistakes. I know that's an old cliche, but really he doesn't make mistakes. You are here for a reason and you have a purpose. Some of us have a bigger purpose than others. Some of us might think, well, why am I here? What is my purpose? But you could say just one thing to someone that could literally save their life, and you will never know that. And then that will then create a ripple effect from that person to another person, and so on. So you may not even know why you're here or understand why you're here, but know you have a purpose, you are important, and you are special. Well, that is what I want you to know. To me, it was having a conversation one-on-one, but I'm sure God can handle many conversations. When you're with God, you just feel like it's all about you. He makes you feel so special. But no, I didn't see a form like Jesus. He was the light. He was the energy. To me, that's what I saw and felt. It was like it was a big dome, and I was under that dome, and he was the dome of light. Was what it was like, and it was just energy. But when you're in that light and God's light, you know it's God. You know it's God, and you can feel it's God. You know it's Him because He is pure love. And when you're with Him, you just know you are special. You are perfect, and so you feel it. I know some people see forms, but I never did. But I knew it was him. Yes. When my appendix burst, there was no pain. I was in a lot of pain for 3 days, bent over and very febrile. And in the instant my appendix burst, I was gone. I didn't feel myself travelling to a place or a time. I just was there. That's how it was for me. It was like I had passed out and went straight to the light, but had no awareness of it. And when I got to the hospital, I don't even remember getting to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, I was 20 minutes from death, according to the doctors. I actually collapsed in the doctor's arms. And it was, I'll never forget it. It was Friday, the 14th of August, 1964 at 4 p.m. And we went to the hospital. Imagine emergency on a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock. It was so busy. And my twin sister took me up to the triage nurse, and she was so brave because we were both worn down over 14 years of orphanage life. And she said, my sister's sick. She needs help. And it was the first time she'd ever spoken up in such a confident way. And the nurse took one look at me and picked the phone up, and the next minute the doctor was calling my name, and I passed out in his arms. And he was I came to, he put me up on a trolley, and I came to, and he was flabbergasted that I was in such a state. But getting from halfway from the hospital to that stage, I don't remember, because I was with the light. I was up with pure love. So there's no memory of that. But all I knew was I didn't, when I woke up and found I was back, I was so disappointed and so upset. There's no way I wanted to come back at all. Certainly not to my life. Well, at 14, there was no internet or mobile phones or anything like that. I didn't do any research whatsoever until much, much later in life, because I was busy having a very difficult life, and it wasn't something I spoke about. I didn't tell the doctors what I saw. I didn't tell anyone. I actually didn't tell anyone about my NDE for decades, because I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't. It wasn't said, it wasn't the done thing. I grew up with children should be seen and not heard. So what you had to say wasn't important. You weren't important. So I didn't really tell anyone about what I saw and how I felt. And it wasn't until probably 20 years ago that I started looking at NDEs online and joining a group online regarding NDEs. But I didn't need to research to prove what I had been through was normal. I believed it anyway because it happened to me. And that kind of love, you just don't find it anywhere else. So I didn't need to second guess it or to find out, you know, is this real and about others having it? Because I just believed it. Because to me, it was the most truest thing that had ever happened to me in my life. The most beautiful thing, the most truest thing. So I didn't need to research anything, but it's interesting now, belonging to a group that I do online, that a lot of other people have had the same things, and a lot of them say the same things about the love on the other side and how beautiful it is, and how a lot of them don't even go to church anymore once they've had an NDE because, you know, it just doesn't marry up at all to what happens when you pass over. It just does not marry up to what people, you know, believe and say. I wrote my life story regarding being raised in orphanages and then going on to forgive. And my life story is an ebook on Amazon. It's called The Girl in the Locker. And I named it that because when I was in the orphanage, I used to hide in my locker to escape the violence that was happening. And so that's The Girl in the Locker on Amazon. It's an ebook. And also I wrote a follow-up book to my life since the passing of my twin sister. And it's called The Power of God and His Divine Messages. And that's also an ebook on Amazon as well. And that's very interesting that actually I go on to say quite a few things that happened to me from the age of 7 regarding speaking telepathically with God. That's a whole other story. But yeah, so I've got those on Amazon, and I'm hoping when people read those that maybe somehow they can forgive and try and have some kind of peace in their life and have a better life for themselves instead of living in the angst and the past. And again, I know how hard it is for a lot of people, but those books are very comforting, especially the second one. But best to read The Girl in the Locker first, because they'll tell you a lot about the orphanages and then how I went on to forgive. Again, I want people to know that how loved they really are and how special they are, and they are here for a reason, and that they have a purpose, even if it seems insignificant. I want them to know that they are worth more and there's stuff here for them to do, especially if you can get out of your own stuff in order to do that. I think life is very precious, and we just can't waste it sitting back worrying about everything and living in the past all the time. And I know there's always triggers, but try, if you can, to, you know, make peace with everything and forgive and hopefully have a better life for yourself. And I send you all love. I wish you all well.